John Hlophe, a name once synonymous with South Africa's legal landscape, now finds himself at the center of a storm engulfing the nation's judiciary. His unceremonious removal from the bench, confirmed on the 21st of February, 2024, by a resounding vote in the National Assembly, has sparked a firestorm of debate and controversy. Hlophe's career spanned decades, marked by both accolades and accusations. Appointed Judge President of the Western Cape High Court in 2009, he rose to prominence for his progressive rulings and commitment to social justice. However, his reputation was forever tarnished in 2008, when allegations surfaced that he attempted to improperly influence judges in corruption cases, involving former President Jacob Zuma. This scandal, dubbed the Hlophe Affair, cast a long shadow over the South African judiciary. Years of investigations, legal battles, and conflicting verdicts followed, culminating in the JSC's 2023 recommendation for his removal. The National Assembly's subsequent vote, with 305 in favor and only 27 against, cemented his fate. Yet, the dust far from settles. Hlophe supporters vehemently reject the accusations, claiming political witch hunts and a flawed process. They point to the years it took to reach a verdict, the initially overturned findings, and Hlophe's consistent denials. This narrative paints the removal as a politically motivated attack on an independent judge who dared to buck the trend. However, others celebrate the decision as a crucial step towards upholding judicial accountability. They argue that Hlophe's actions, regardless of their intent, eroded public trust in the judiciary and threatened its impartiality. They emphasize the importance of precedent, highlighting the need to hold judges accountable for their conduct, no matter their stature. The following year, the Judicial Service Commission, the body responsible for overseeing judicial conduct, initiated a formal investigation into the allegations. This marked the start of a lengthy process that would consume years and garner significant public attention. By 2012, the JSC had concluded its investigation, finding Hlophe guilty of gross misconduct. However, their recommendation for punishment sparked further debate. Instead of removal from the bench, the JSC opted for a lesser sanction, igniting criticism from those who felt it insufficient to address the severity of the offense. The saga took an unexpected turn in 2019 when the full court, a higher judicial body, overturned the JSC's findings on a technicality. While this decision brought temporary relief to Hlophe, it was not the end of the road. The court, recognizing the seriousness of the allegations, ordered a retrial, ensuring the matter would not be swept under the rug. 2023 saw the JSC reconvene its investigation, meticulously re-examining the evidence and arguments presented. This time, the verdict was unequivocal. Hlophe was again found guilty of gross misconduct, and the JSC recommended his removal from office. This recommendation reached the National Assembly in February 2024, where the final chapter of this long-running drama unfolded. After much deliberation and public scrutiny, the Assembly voted to uphold the JSC's recommendation, effectively ending Judge Hlophe's judicial career. Supporters of the removal view Hlophe's alleged attempt to influence judges in corruption cases as a blatant assault on judicial impartiality, the bedrock of a fair and functioning legal system. They point to the gravity of the accusations, arguing that a judge caught meddling in such sensitive matters forfeits the right to remain on the bench. This is not about one individual, declared prominent lawyer Sipho Nxumalo, but about protecting the very foundation of our justice system. This sentiment resonates with many South Africans who have long grappled with perceptions of corruption and undue influence within powerful institutions. The drawn-out investigation, spanning over a decade and culminating in multiple findings against Hlophe, bolsters their conviction that accountability, even for high-ranking officials, is paramount. They see his removal as a necessary step towards cleansing the judiciary and restoring public trust. However, Hlophe's removal has also sparked fierce opposition, raising concerns about the fairness of the process and the true motives behind his ousting. Critics point to procedural irregularities and potential bias within the Judicial Service Commission, the body responsible for investigating and recommending sanctions against judges. They argue that the lengthy proceedings and inconsistent rulings raise questions about the legitimacy of the outcome. Furthermore, some see the removal as politically motivated, fueled by Hlophe's past rulings that irked certain power structures. His supporters cite his track record of independence and rulings in favor of human rights and social justice as evidence of his victimization. This is a dangerous precedent, warns human rights activist Fatima Mia, if judges can be removed based on rulings deemed inconvenient by some. Standing on the other side, the Judicial Service Commission firmly defends its findings. They emphasize the extensive inquiry, the multiple independent assessments, and the overwhelming evidence against Hlophe. Our duty is to uphold judicial integrity, and this removal sends a clear message that no one is above the law, stated a spokesperson, underscoring their commitment to accountability within the judiciary. Legal experts, however, present a spectrum of perspectives. Some, like Professor Zondiwayne Kosi, commend the JSC's thoroughness and adherence to due process. This sets a crucial precedent for holding judges accountable without political interference, she remarked. Others, like Advocate Mbuyiselo Mabanga, raise concerns about potential procedural flaws and express reservations about the JSC's impartiality. There are lingering questions about how certain evidence was handled, and these ambiguities leave room for doubt, he cautioned. Politicians unsurprisingly align their responses with their party lines. The ruling party, while acknowledging the seriousness of the allegations, emphasizes the need for respect for the legal process and avoids directly endorsing the removal. The opposition, on the other hand, paints a scathing picture, accusing the JSC of being a tool of the government and calling the removal a travesty of justice. This is about silencing dissent and intimidating judges, declared their spokesperson, adding fuel to the political firestorm. Beyond the immediate political sphere, public figures and commentators offer diverse perspectives. Former Chief Justice Mogweng, while not commenting on the specifics of the case, urges South Africans to trust the institutions tasked with upholding the law. We must have faith in the processes put in place to ensure a fair and impartial judiciary, he advised. Activist groups, however, express concerns about the precedent set and worry that the removal could stifle critical voices within the judiciary. This risks sending a chilling effect, discouraging judges from standing up for what's right, warned a representative. At the heart of the storm lies the allegation that Hlophe attempted to influence judges in corruption cases against former President Jacob Zuma. This explosive accusation, dating back to 2008, triggered a years-long saga that saw Hlophe investigated, found guilty, acquitted on a technicality, retried, and ultimately removed. Supporters of the removal paint it as a necessary defense of judicial independence. They point to the lengthy investigation, the JSC's findings of gross misconduct, and the confirmation of those findings by the National Assembly as evidence of wrongdoing. For them, Hlophe's actions represent a grave threat to the impartiality of the courts, and his removal sends a clear message that no one, not even a high-ranking judge, is above the law. However, a cloud of suspicion lingers. Detractors argue that the process was riddled with irregularities and political interference. They highlight the JSC's initial recommendation of a lesser sanction, the technicality that overturned the first guilty verdict, and the potential influence of Zuma loyalists within the JSC. These concerns fuel a narrative of Hlophe being a victim of political forces, seeking to silence a judge known for rulings critical of the previous administration. The question of due process further muddies the waters. While the JSC and National Assembly followed established procedures, critics point to potential biases within the JSC and accuse the National Assembly of being a rubber stamp. The spectre of political influence looms large, raising concerns about the fairness and legitimacy of the entire process. The long-term implications of this case are far-reaching. If Hlophe's removal is seen as politically motivated, it could erode public trust in the judiciary, a cornerstone of any democracy. Conversely, if it serves as a genuine deterrent against judicial misconduct, it could strengthen the judiciary's independence and accountability. The answer, however, hinges on unraveling the truth behind the competing narratives. Unanswered questions abound. Was the investigation truly impartial? Did political considerations sway the JSC or the National Assembly? What are the true motivations behind Hlophe's removal? Only time, and potentially further legal challenges, may provide definitive answers. The dust may have settled on the removal of Judge John Hlophe, but the storm clouds of controversy continue to linger over South Africa's judiciary. The saga, spanning over a decade, has left behind a trail of unresolved questions and competing narratives, each vying to define the true story. At the heart of the contention lies the fundamental question: was Hlophe's removal truly driven by the sacrosanct ideal of upholding judicial integrity, or were there other, murkier motives at play? His supporters vehemently argue the latter, pointing to alleged political targeting and inconsistencies in the lengthy investigation process. They see the JSC's verdict as a dangerous precedent, potentially chilling dissent and jeopardizing judicial independence. On the other side, those advocating for Hlophe's removal highlight the gravity of the accusations against him. An attempt to influence judges in high-profile corruption cases, they argue, strikes at the very core of judicial impartiality, and accountability must be swift and decisive. The multiple findings against him, they emphasize, cannot be simply dismissed as politically motivated. Beyond the immediate he said she said, the case carries profound significance for South Africa's nascent democracy. The judiciary, often hailed as the cornerstone of a just society, has taken a hit to its public image. Trust, once freely given, is now cautiously withheld, as citizens grapple with questions of fairness and political interference. The future remains uncertain. Hlophe has indicated his intention to challenge his removal through legal means, potentially prolonging the saga and further testing the limits of the judicial system. Meanwhile, the JSC, tasked with upholding judicial integrity, faces the scrutiny of a public yearning for transparency and impartiality. Only time will tell how this chapter in South Africa's legal history unfolds. But one thing is certain: the scars of the Hlophe saga will not easily fade. The echoes of unresolved questions and competing narratives will continue to reverberate, reminding all of the fragility of trust and the ever-present need for vigilance in safeguarding the independence and integrity of the judiciary, the bedrock of any true democracy. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe.